how do you just flip that switch other than just telling them, hey man, you got to do something about this?
It's like you either learn the lesson or the lesson's just going to keep slapping you. You know, I compare everything to fighting because I honestly believe that every single life lesson that you'll ever learn, you can learn it in fighting. The longer you do it, the more life lessons you'll run into. There's no answer there. The answer is in you trying. You have to try. You know, adversity smacks you and it says, what now? It's a fight. You get hit and so what you going to do now? And we don't have to take turns. It's fighting is chess without having to take turns. You either make your move and you adjust or deal with it. Deal with it. I win.
Fighting is for the intelligent, and I 110% agree. You know, because I think if you are into fighting, I think everything else comes with it. The true definition of intelligence, it's actually your rate of how fast you learn.
There's no answer there. The answer is in you trying. You have to try. You know, adversity smacks you, and it says, what now? It's a fight. You get hit, and so what you gonna do now?
We were talking before this podcast, and you said a line, adversity doesn't
build character, it exposes character.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that? About, explain that principle right there? When adversity, say for example, adversity hits you, how do you end up handling it?
Well, shucks. Am I allowed to cuss? Can I cuss?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That's all I want. Fuck.
Oh, I'm glad you beat me to it. That's good.
Gotcha.
Well, shit, freaking, how do I deal with it? And I think it's even funny you say, like, how do you deal with it? Like, because people ask me that all the time. Like, now that I'm coaching Muay Thai, and now that's such a funny thing where you're looking at your goal and you're like, yeah, I'm chasing after that. And then once you get to a certain point chasing it, you look behind you and there's people like, oh, I want to chase it too. How do I do it? You know, and people ask all the time, oh, how do you deal with adversity? And it's just one of those things where you either handle business or business handles you.
Oh, I like that. And that's a good one.
When that hit, my great aunt Laura Jean says that. That's her quote. Laura Jean.
Awesome.
And so the reason I put it that way is because I don't even think of it as like handling adversity. It's like adversity hits you and you either handle it or you don't. And in the midst of trying to handle it or in the midst of it happening, it exposes you to how do you handle it? You know, it's just like Mike Tyson when he says everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth.
I love that.
You walked in with a plan, you get hit in the mouth, and then what happened? And then that shows you where you are. And then you assess where you are, and then you're faced with choices. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Why do you think a lot of people are scared of that adversity? Right. I mean, they are. They go into like this victimhood. It's crazy.
Everybody's got their own reasons, and adversity comes in so many different shapes and forms that like everybody's got their own rhymes and reasons. The first example that came to mind, I'll just start there, is imagine you're like on a journey, you're on a path, and if you don't hit any adversity, then the destination you put in your brain is correct. The path you selected is correct. The map is truthful, everything. There's definitely treasure at the end, and you're just gonna go on the path, and like everything's just nice, right? But if adversity hits, that's when you figure out you're going in the wrong direction, and you've been going in the wrong direction for however many years, and now you got to start over. Or that's when you find out, like, you know, you hit a pothole and you twist your ankle, and now you got to figure out how to carry your pack and still get to the same destination and all that stuff. And it just makes it hard. It's no longer simple. You can't just. It's like, man, I can't just add these two things and it just works. No, sometimes you're going to put two things together and something totally unexpected is going to happen and you're going to have to think, you know? But it's just having to work. People are afraid of work.
Yeah. How do you get someone to, like it's as simple as saying, oh yeah, like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. But how do you get someone that's not really programmed that way yet? Because not really to blame on them. It's just there's a lot of instant gratification nowadays.
Yeah,
we like to like sit on the couch. Most people like to sit on the couch and just do absolutely
how you get
nothing.
it moving? How you get the juices moving?
Exactly.
Like for somebody else.
Like how do you flip that switch to be able to be like, all right, man, I need to do something. Or if they do go through something that's not their fault, how do you just flip that switch other than just telling them, hey man, you got to do something about this?
Well, life will tell you, it's like, that's my theory, or at least what I've learned throughout my time on earth, time living, is it's like you either learn the lesson or the lesson is just going to keep slapping you, and, I compare everything to fighting because I honestly believe that every single life lesson that you'll ever learn, you can learn it in fighting. The longer you do it, the more life lessons you'll run into. And it's like, man, he's going to throw that right kick. You don't defend? Oh, okay. Like life just said, oh, I have an answer. This is what's going to keep him right there. And this is what's going to constantly hurt him and damage him. Okay. Bang. Ooh, bang. Move. Bang. Yep. And then just find different ways to set it up until you fix that. And it's jiu-jitsu, same thing, or wrestling, somebody gets to the single leg. It's like, oh, he's not stuffing the head. He's not wizarding. You just get taken down. And it's like you either stop and assess or deal with getting taken down forever.
Yeah, I was listening to this guy. He's like a business guy on YouTube. He's everywhere. His name's Alex Ramosi, right? And he says that intelligence, the true definition of intelligence, it's actually your rate of how fast you learn.
Yeah.
So, like you were saying, if someone goes for a double leg takedown and then you don't defend it properly, well, you're gonna get taken down again. Yeah. Someone does the same takedown again, you don't defend it, well, you're going to get taken down again. Well, guess what? If you move out the way and maybe break their posture the next time, oh, you learned. That's intelligent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the meaning of like intelligence. So yeah, I do like that definition. That's a great point.
And so like to bring it back to adversity exposing character, it's like when those hardships hit you, when, when homelessness happens, when bankruptcy happens, when, your car breaks down or, somebody breaks up with you, the friend does this, blah, blah, blah.
We've all been through it too.
You got to turn around and assess. Now you have broken pieces to look at and you got to figure it out. Like if you've ever done a puzzle, there's no answer there. The answer is in you trying. You have to try, adversity smacks you and it says, what now? It's a fight. Yeah. You get hit and so what you going to do now? And we don't have to take turns. It's fighting is chess without having to take turns. You either make your move and you adjust, or bang, deal with it. Deal with it. I win. Like,
right.
Fuck you.
Exactly. So speaking of fighting, I think that's a really good segue to kind of get into it. What is it about? CT, you started Muay Thai, correct?
Technically wrestling.
Okay, technically wrestling. Okay.
But as far as like competition, you still say jiu-jitsu, but man, I just made that way more complex than it needed to be.
No, you're right.
Everybody knows me as the Muay Thai guy because, and I can tell you exactly why. It's because 2017 I wrestled. Well, you say 2016, like end of 2016, I like started training in wrestling. It was like the end of the wrestling season, and I was a junior in high school and literally a senior in the hallway. The whole wrestling team, it was only like 5 or 6 seniors. There might have been like 2 or 3 like freshmen, sophomore, might even been juniors. Like everybody's getting ready to graduate and leave. And they know that the wrestling team's going to be dead. And all these guys are like badasses that like they lose like, dual meets because there's not enough people, but we beat all of y'all. Like, you know what I mean? And he just saw me in the hallway and I've always been, I don't want to say always built this way, like I never did anything about it. I've always been like running and doing pull-ups and lifting and trying to teach myself how to fight, like Kung Fu, like watching Bruce Lee and stuff.
JKD.
This is funny. I was trying to figure out what to wear. I was like, hey, what do I wear? And I'm like, man, this shirt or that shirt. And I was like, just wear a t-shirt. And then I was like, I like this one.
Fitting.
Jukundo.
It's fitting.
Right, yeah, perfect. Yeah. And plus 3/4 sleeves look really good on me.
I love fucking baseball shirts.
They're perfect, aren't they?
It. Yep.
I always wanted to fight, and I always watched UFC, but I never understood exactly what they were doing. It's like when they're standing up, it's like they're just dancing in front of each other. Like I don't really understand, but I always heard them say wrestlers make really good fighters. So I was like, okay. So when he mentioned wrestling to me in the hallway, I was like, okay, fine, I'll go try it. And I went to the wrestling room, and he put me through a workout. It was hot. And I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm running, and he showed me how to shot walk and how to down block and sprawl and blah blah blah. And he's got me wrestling and trying to get up and breakdowns, takedowns, and pinning combinations. And it was like the worst experience of my life. And I was like, I want to do this. Like, how, like,
Right.
teach me how to do more of this. You know, I've never been controlled by another person ever.
Yep.
So it was like, I got to do it.
Which is like how most people start, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like, oh shit, when they get into the hands of someone and then they can't do anything, it's like, oh man, especially if like it's a smaller person, right? That's usually like the story. It's like, oh man, like he just got me tied up like a pretzel and I couldn't get out of it. That's
Yeah.
when like seems to be the majority of like jujitsu wrestling stories, how it's the villain arc. It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like I gotta learn this shit.
Because adversity exposes character.
Perfect.
You hit the adversity, and then I know so many people. There's so many people. I remember wrestling my first season. So I started as a senior because in the end of junior year, that's when I found out about wrestling. Started training. I did like one like Greco-Roman freestyle tournament like during the summertime. I'd like lost all my matches, but you know it was my first tournament. And then next year I was like, I want to like run into wrestling and just do my best and just do whatever I can. And I brought it up because I know plenty of people during the season, like football players, fall time, they play football in the football season, that's wrestling season. And then, they come into the wrestling room, they only last a week at most.
Wrestling is so hard, man.
It's grueling.
It's like probably what Joe Rogan was saying, man. Like it's one of the most brutal things. And I haven't wrestled technically, right? Like as far as like high level competition or anything. But then
jiu-jitsu, you
like,
get a
what
taste.
the fuck? Yeah, you get. Yeah, but dude, this is not even. I gotta disagree, dude. The fucking shit that they do in actual like high school wrestling, even high school, wrestling. It's like, what? Dude, it's so crazy. I mean. I played a little bit of football in high school. Even that, man. Wrestling have it, at least in my perspective, they have it so fucking tough as far as their training and their drills. And, they got a fireman carry someone fucking.
Dude,
like, it's so crazy.
Man, but honestly, I really miss it.
Yeah.
But, MMA training, it's about, to say it's just as bad is not quite yes, but no. You can make it that way, but it also depends on where you train and everybody's philosophy about training and all that sort of stuff. Because you could argue overtraining and stuff, but then again, it's for the same extended block of like within a block of 4 to 5 hours, you're like doing all of your training, or it could be 3 to 4 hours or 2.5 to 3, but you're still getting like a big block of training. But yeah, man, I remember fireman's carries and piggyback rides and Mary carry and plate workouts and climbing rope and frog jumps and sprinting and weightlifting and running bleachers. Like it's fun because like the whole time you're doing it, you're just thinking about like, well, I mean, I don't think like this anymore because I think there's a lot of flaw in it, and I'll explain what I mean. Like that whole like, oh, that one guy that beat me in the season, I'm gonna see him at district and I'm gonna get him, like, putting targets on other people's backs and all that sort of thing. Even in MMA, I mean, its point being about that is like, having that goal and then working so hard to get there and knowing it's going to be hard, but you accept it anyway. And it just builds so much character. Like that part of it, it's like, that's everything. That's what wrestlers live for, I think. Like I don't know a single wrestler that doesn't want to compete and want to put themselves through hell in order to be ready to compete at the highest level. It's like, ooh, especially as a fighter, it's like, yeah, bring it on. Let's do it.
Yeah. It seems very, just like fighting, it's just so primitive. You just have that like testosterone built, like, oh, fuck. Want to like pretty much fuck someone up.
Yeah.
But, so, moving on to kind of like your specialty, like you said, you're kind of known as like the Muay Thai guy.
Yeah.
I know that's how I first knew you as, right? I mean, you were the Muay Thai coach. So
yeah, sure.
What is it about the art of striking, man? Like, you know what? First of all, generally, what makes a good striker?
Ooh, you know what?
Yep.
Very fascinating question. What makes a good striker?
Yep. Now that you see it, not just in general, but how you see it from your own eyes, subjectively, to the level where you're at right now.
What makes a great striker? It's the same thing that makes a great. I've been listening to too much philosophy, man.
Philosophize away.
No, because it's such a fascinating thing to think about. Because some people are just so attached to a style or a way of doing it or blah, blah, blah. What makes a great striker is the same thing that makes a great grappler, that makes a great mixed martial artist, that makes a great anything. That same thing makes a great businessman, a great chef, blah, 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 blah. How well do you deal with changes and problem solving? That's all fighting. That's all life is. But to get away from life and hone in magnifying glass on fighting is imposing your will and problem solving. So it's all about having the deepest will and sharper skill. That's all it's about. Being the best striker, being a better striker, that's all about when a problem comes up, how quickly and how well can you solve that problem? And then when things get really tough, when you solve a problem and then he finds a solution to your solution, and then like how many times can you just overlap over one another, until you get the win,
Yeah, like recalibrating.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time,
How
yeah.
well can you recalibrate, And then when we start talking about styles, then it's about, okay, how many weapons do you have? Like, okay, if you're a boxer, okay, I mean, boxers are incredibly intelligent. They're very fast.
Yeah.
And I mean, I study boxers a lot, especially for MMA, because you're wearing small gloves. Most of the time, aside from kicking somebody, you're going to do a lot of damage with your hands. Almost initially, you're going to throw a jab first. You're going to try and figure out how to use your hands well in order to dominate the fight. And boxers, they're really good at being versatile with limited weapons. They only got 2 hands and their 2 feet. They're not punching to just, okay, somebody that doesn't know anything about boxing, you give him boxing gloves, he's like, all right, I'm going to throw punches at you, trying to hit you. I want to try and hit you really hard. A boxer, you put gloves on a boxer, he's like, how do I punch to put myself in position to throw this shot? How do I punch to get him out of position? Every time I do this, he does that. Okay, boom. So I'm not even gonna do it right now. I just know that could happen. Okay, fine. I'm like collecting data as I'm going. Fighting isn't for tough guys. It's for intelligent guys. You got to be smart. You got to be smart enough to create reactions, to recognize patterns, and to make reads, and to actually, especially as a striker, you could say it for. Jiu-jitsu is just grappling is just different, but striking it's definitely like that. It's about, okay, every time I do this, he circles like that. Every time I do that, he dips his head. He likes to defend like this. Okay, I'm gonna throw it just like this one more time, just so he defends like that one more again. Okay, boom, he does it again. Feint, bang, ooh, and then he's asleep.
Yeah, it's like you're gathering information at a very fast rate.
Yes,
which is crazy. It's hard for people to understand. Even me till this day, I've been training for a while, but like I said, like as a hobbyist, but then it's so hard, even just with playful sparring, to kind of be like, okay, well, he did that, and then feint with a purpose. There's so much that goes into it. That's why it was like that's why it was like one of my questions, especially coming from a really good striker that, does Muay Thai, Thai boxing pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's continue with that because, for the people that just striking in general, I know there's a lot to combat sports, which we'll get into, but then just striking in general, I mean, it's so complex. What are some more, continuing with that question, what are some more advice that you can give? Maybe even an intermediate striker, is it like positioning? Is it, there's reads, there's feints. Like what sticks out to you? What's your priorities? What are you looking
as an intermediate guy? So like advice for an intermediate guy to basically break through to the next level, sort of thing. Like how does intermediate become an advanced striker and so on, that sort of deal. I would say, man, don't forget about the basics, the fundamentals.
Yep.
I do it all the time. Like when I'm trying to sharpen my striking, I'm really focused on really simple stuff, because being advanced is just doing really simple, basic things at an advanced level.
I like that.
It sounds so goofy. I just thought of it now, and I was like, oh, that's so goofy. Why say that? But
even that's
but
basic.
It's true.
That's
yeah,
basic.
It's so basic. It's like the difference between you being advanced is you don't jab at an advanced level, right? And it's like, okay, well, what the hell does that mean? Does it need to be faster? Does it need to be longer? Do I need to step in more? All of the above, Feint better, fake better. Like sometimes I'll take a whole round and just focus on the jab. And in between, and of course, when you're just standing there, you go jab, You go jab. Then you're like, oh, okay, jab the body. Okay, feint, jab. Okay, feint, jab, post. Okay, jab, post, right? Learn the different ways to use your jab, right? Because, you could sometimes just
Like different rhythms.
different yeah, exactly. So that's what makes something like a jab advance. It's a basic punch, but as soon as you start changing its rhythm, changing its timing, you start feinting it, you start changing its location, changing its level, you start using your feet in different ways with it. Jabbing when I move in this direction, jabbing when I move in that direction, jabbing when I move back, jabbing and stepping back at the same time, switching, feinting this jab and jabbing with the opposite hand. You apply a bunch of different concepts onto that, and then boom, advance. That's all that is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The striking aspect is, really, it's just like a chain of things, I think. Like you said, it's like doing the basics, like a jab, and then just adding to that, feinting, doing, rhythm, distance, and timing. It's quite, like you said, it's quite simple, but not. It's like, weirdly enough, it's like, it's so hard to explain that you actually have to do it to get, to get
that's
good at it.
the funny thing about it. I use the example all the time of swimming. I used to be not a great, I'm a pretty great swimmer now. Great. I'm great. Yeah, great. I'm a great swimmer. I won't drown. And I can get from point A to point B faster than the average person, right? I'm
That's
a
a good
decent
modest
swimmer.
way to put it. I
Right.
got you.
Okay. Boom. So, were you being sarcastic? So freaking, I'm a decent swimmer. Okay.
Yeah.
When I wasn't a great swimmer or okay swimmer, decent swimmer, whatever type of swimmer I am, I looked at a book. Oh, this is how you swim. And just because you read the book don't mean you just hop in the deep end and just start swimming. Reading it and then doing it they're totally separate things,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the only way to learn is doing it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like put yourself in the deep waters. It's like, throw yourself into the wolves at times. Throughout your fight career, man, what's the biggest now principle that you've learned in Muay Thai? Not just when it comes to striking, but more of like the intellect, the intelligence part of it.
Yeah.
Other than the physical aspect, because we did talk about how fighting is for the intelligent, and I 110% agree. Because I think if you are into fighting, I think everything else comes with it, right? Your athleticism.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's levels to the shit, but it's just kind of like you're gonna train. You're gonna go to those gyms, but there's things in your mindset and in your philosophy and in your intelligence that separates you from, say, your average level striker.
For me, through my experience in Muay Thai, control and optics, right?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is winning a fight, winning the story of the fight, right? Muay Thai, the whole fight is scored as a whole. It's not scored like round after round. So it's not about how many rounds you win. It's about winning the fight, right? And this is something to even carry into, this even branches off into wrestling. This branches off into, I don't know about jiu-jitsu, but MMA. I'm thinking of, so optics. When the round is over, boom, right? Freaking, you don't, I'm tired, put your hands on your knees, right? Or, plop on the stool and you hunch your back and like chugging water and like looking tired. The round's over, you put your hands up and your chest is high and you might even, I hit him with something. I look at him, smirk at him. Ooh, I got you, right? And because this isn't just between us. There's a whole crowd watching and there's judges judging us. They're judging the fight. And so optics, it's more than just landing more than him, or it's when he hits me, you don't see you almost wonder, did he even hit him hard? Like, did that hurt at all whatsoever? You and even just taking the judges outside of it, the fight itself, me versus him, right? We're fighting. I want to appear invincible, Everything you throw at me, it doesn't mean anything to me, right? Yeah. And even if it did, okay, you got me. I want you to see that I figured it out, right? You threw it, okay, jab landed. You threw jab again. I parry, low kick, boom. Oh, that hurt, and I saw it hurt you, haha. And I'm coming for you now. And it's like, oh my god, like this guy is learning and he's coming, and it's like, oh my, like if you fighting is more than the physical part, it's mostly the mental part. And when you're dominating somebody, it's more than just dominating them physically. You're seeping into their brain, into their emotions. You know, when you make someone faint and react. Well, when you feint in order to make someone react, and then you capitalize on the reaction in such a dramatic way that affects their consciousness, you know, literally, I feint here and I hook you hard, then I kick you in your head, and then you wobble, and now I'm coming for you, right? I jab, ooh, it landed. I jab, feint, elbow, ooh, and then I see your nose break, and I look at you, and now I'm still coming for you. It's like somebody's got to feel something. He feels something about that. You know, he's thinking something about that. And what I've taken away from Muay Thai is the battle between minds and emotions. You know, the more I watch a fight over and over, I love watching fights. I'll watch a Muay Thai fight over and over, like 12 times, 15, 20 times. And the more you watch the fight over and over, the less you see the punches and kicks being thrown, and the more you see their faces and the thoughts being transmitted. There's a conversation going on between their bodies, but nobody's talking. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. And I think most people subconsciously know that, but they don't, right? They don't consciously, they subconsciously know. When they're watching a fight, when they see someone he's getting beat down, I think they're observing like more of their body language, how they're like backing up, or how they're, they're getting leg kicked, and then they're just kind of,
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's a very interesting perspective. Only like someone that's been in the trenches would know, because that's the first time in this podcast, believe it or not, I've heard that, right?
Really?
It makes sense, obviously.
Yeah.
But then, not a lot of people point that out, the psychological aspect when it comes to like your body language, and you see the guy hurt, and then or if you're hurt, you got to put a game face on. It's like, that didn't hurt. You know what I mean? That's what you're talking about, right? Like, that's a really, really good. So as far as like physically, how do you approach that when it comes to like Muay Thai? Is it conditioning based, or is it more of like
dealing with pain?
No, like more so, how do you get ready for a fight, right?
How do you
like
get ready for a fight physically?
Yeah.
Heck, number one is cardio. The one thing you don't want to be in a fight is tired.
Just get broken down.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Fatigue makes cowards out of all of us.
There it is, dude. I love that quote.
Freaking, I don't know who said it, but yeah, it stuck with me, as you can see. I don't want to.
It's a good one. It's a really
being
good
tired
one.
in a fight. It's like you could know exactly what to do. You're just gonna no. I didn't show up. You're looking at a shell of a man now. You're just gonna crumble if you're tired.
Yeah, you've seen it, right? Like on that, I don't think the commentators. It came from the commentators of that quote, but that was said in the That's who's that girl that retired, the all-time greatest the Lioness? What's her name?
Amanda Nunes.
Amanda Nunes, and then the Venezuela vixen Cruz.
Cruz. Ooh, I don't. Is that the girl that fought Valentina last for the title like 3 times?
No, that was Raquel Penning.
Raquel Penning.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't be paying too much attention.
It's all good. But my point is that Amanda, you could see her, like, she thought rightfully so, that she thought she could just outstrike Cruz, right? The Venezuelan vixen. I forgot her first name, so I'm just going to call her by that.
Yeah, call her Cruz. It was one of her names.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, Cruz had, like, a rear naked choke, but didn't have the hooks in. And the commentators were even saying it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people that fight and train and watch fights were like, wait, she didn't have the hooks in. But I think she just gave up. So to your point, why? And I wouldn't know, and I'm not trying to take anything away from her, but that's what they were saying, right? Like Joe Rogan and DC and all that. And it's like, back to your point, she was just exhausted, and you could just see it. They were telling her, she was trying to outstrike her, and then all of a sudden it didn't work. Now she blew her load, pretty much, quote unquote. And that's what it is. It's like, back to the quote you said, fatigue makes a coward out of all of us. It's kind of like, maybe I live to fight another day or something, right?
Yeah.
After you're just completely blown out. You have your arms down in like a boxing match, and you're just like, dude, the physicalness could only your mindset could go, but the physical aspect could only go so far.
Yeah, it's like once the fatigue comes knocking, you start to negotiate. Like where the goalpost is. It's like first you want to win, and then you get. And I mean, getting hurt is the same thing. When you're in a fight, and I mean, imagine you're in a fight, you're fighting, things are going okay, and then he throws across, boom, switch knee, hits you, and you feel ribs break. It's like, well, bam, ow, okay. And like, now what are you gonna, adversity exposes character. Yeah, there's some fighters like, and I don't even want to make it sound like, they're a fucking pussy if they fucking gave up after discovering that their rib was broken.
Sure,
I've had my rib broken, I can't fight, blah, blah, blah. But there's plenty of us, maybe the first time it happened, we gave up. But then we try again and we try again. Like, most of my quitting or my, getting like, there's been times where I'll be in the training room doing cage rounds and somebody's beating me up. I get tired in the last round and he starts putting in the choke and it's like, oh, like, just fuck it. I just want him off of me. Just get off of me. Right. Yeah. And then you just feel so ashamed of it. You cry in the shower. And then it's like, okay.
That long drive home.
Yeah, right? And now I'm like itching for the next cage round.
Yeah.
And then next cage round comes and I'm in the same position and it's like, nope. And this is how I explained it to a training partner, right? It's like it's like that little quitter in you is like a little baby that like really wants a cookie, right? He really wants you to quit, right? The quitting is the cookie and the little baby is, let's say it's your inner bitch, basically, right? The inner bitch baby is like walking around like, oh, how do I make him quit, right? And first, the jar is just on top of the table and he just has a climb on top of a chair and he just sees it and he's like, aha, okay, he's tired in this round and this guy's choking him. I get the cookie. And it's like, oh, you quit. And it's like, once you discover that as the parent, you go, okay, this cookie jar needs to go somewhere else, right? And then you put it way up there, and then the baby gets smarter, it starts climbing on top of that, and then it makes a ladder out of these boxes, and it climbs up, and it somehow still gets to it. And I think that's the mission of a fighter, constantly keeping keeping the cookie jar out of the reach of the bitch baby.
Yeah. Hey man, I like it.
That's how I explained it to him, but. Yeah, you dig what I'm saying, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
And but as far as preparing physically for fights, I say cardio is one, and then number two is my strengths are in being explosive. As far as striking, when I'm preparing my striking, I like to hit a lot of stuff. I like whether it's hitting pads or hitting the bag and all this sort of stuff. And the reason I say hitting stuff is because sometimes I notice with myself specifically, I'm explosive, but I'm very muscular, right? I'm muscle bound, yeah. So because I'm very muscle bound, I tend to run out of gas, right, in the striking. Yeah. And so I've found ways to increase that gas. And when I do intervals on the bag, or if I just do prolonged rounds on the bag, and also feeling that explosion also, right? Because sometimes I do a lot of play sparring, and sometimes I also find that right balance between technical sparring and hard rounds, right? Like preparing for fights, we do like hard cage rounds. It's like only a couple. It's okay if a fight is 100%, we're going like 85%. So
yeah, wow,
like,
85%.
Yeah, like we're trying to like make it pretty real, sure. And your coaches are coaching you, they're cornering you. Some of your teammates are watching and yelling their stuff or blah blah blah. So like you're being watched, and you get a little bit of an adrenaline dump. You feel that, and you have to manage the real feelings of the fight.
When you get that adrenaline dump, for people that haven't fought and all that. Is it better to get that adrenaline dump, or is it better to kind of lower yourself so you're like centered?
I actually have a really good example as to how I have lowered it, and it still smacks you. It'll still come get you, because you're in a fight.
Yeah, right.
Sure. It's like because no matter how fake you try and make the danger, your body knows it's real, you know? The first and only time I've been finished in a Muay Thai fight, I tell people all the time. I remember I had an opponent tell me this after an MMA fight. He was like, you're a guy that I was like afraid of, or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I feel like you should always be afraid. Not like you as in like him, like you as in like, I feel like everybody, you're going into a fight, you should be scared, right? But, and I learned that from the first time I got finished in a Muay Thai fight. I believe the reason I lost that fight the way I did is because I wasn't afraid. My nerves were so bad, like so intense. I meditate often and a lot, right? Often and a lot as in like daily as a ritual. And if I try to squeeze in a 30-minute block, and if I'm running late, then I'll try to at least get 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like I just kind of have to do it. And I remember being so nervous, like I'm meditating and I'm like trying to get to this cool, calm place, because it was just so, like, if you've ever been preparing for a fight, like your nerves get just crazy, you know? And I feel like the smarter you get, the more you start realizing how ridiculous what you're doing is. And so then the nerves get worse, and then it's like, okay, well, you really need to calm down. You prepared for this. You're okay.
Right.
And by the time I got to the ring, I was very calm and I felt good. And I was like, okay, this is good. No big deal. Okay. And then I get in the ring, fight starts. Okay, teep. Okay, jab. He threw a left high kick and I leaned out of the way. And I just felt the air come off of it. And my body was like, whoa, we could have died.
Damn,
oh my God.
yeah.
And like, then the adrenaline hits you unexpected. Boom. And it's like, oh, like, fuck. Oh my goodness. Like, and that's why I think, man, knowing it's there and embrace it. I don't even like to really call the adrenaline dump. It's more like when fear hits you, right? Because I was talking to Khalil Roundtree about this today, and I explain this to everybody like all the time if they ever give me the opportunity to talk about it, right? Thank goodness you got me on the podcast, because I love to talk, right?
My pleasure.
We were talking about fear, all right? And about fear being your friend. And I was thinking deeply about fear one day, and I personified it as like a partner in war. Like imagine you're going to war and it's just you and fear, right? And it's another soldier. It's you, identical, right? And he's tethered to you, and you're facing this large army, this impossible army, right? In a man across the cage. And it's like, okay, if you just try and act like fear isn't there, you're just like, okay, like I'm focused on me doing this, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm not scared. I promise I'm not scared. Okay, and then fear's sitting over there. You don't talk to him. You don't do anything to help him. As soon as the fight starts, he goes, "Fuck this, I'm out." Boom, and he runs away. And you're tethered to him. He holds you back in the fight because he's not in it. He's not in the fight. But if you talk to fear and you tell him, okay, well, I understand that you're afraid. You are afraid, yeah? But you can't run. What? I can't run? No, you can't. There's nowhere for you to go. They just close the door and we're stuck in here. And we have to deal with him. Then fear, he like stops shaking, stops trembling, and he goes, all right, then he's got to die. And that's the flip side of fear that gives you the power. The power of fear is when you make him your friend, when you let him know, hey, you want to run, you want to leave, but you can't. There is no leaving, right? We prepared for this. And sometimes this happens like throughout all fight week. Well, for me, right? For me, I'm scared throughout the whole fight week. And some people hit some day of, hit some right before. Some people it's a month before. But freaking whole week, it's like fear will tap me and be like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you sure we should be doing this? Or like, what if he does this or what if he does that? Well, we've been coming to class and okay, well, you're literally talking to him. Okay, well, if he does this, we're going to do that. Okay, well, I feel a little better about that. Okay, and if he does this, then we've done a lot of this and we're going to do that. Oh, okay, well, shit, I feel a little better about that. And it's like, yeah, and your training partners are so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, and do you think that our opponent could fuck them up? And I'm like, nah, I really don't think so. And it's like, boom, okay, then there's nothing to worry about. And you calm him down until day of, and then it's like, okay, you can't go anywhere. So now let's go kill him.
Yeah,
And
like,
it's
here we are.
And now fear is like, okay, it has to happen. Dope, let's do it. And that's the flip side of him.
Yeah, that relates, when you were saying that, like a light bulb kind of went out, because that kind of relates to its cousin, which is kind of faith. That's what I got. Like, meaning faith in like your abilities.
Yeah,
Right? Like
you have to.
it's like fear, what you were talking about is fear is always gonna be there. All right. It's an emotion like anything else. It's like shame, it's guilt, it's embarrassment. But then there's no. So I was reading this book, and then it mentioned something about like there's no good or bad emotions, right? Even if it's guilt, even if it's shame.
Yeah.
Because eventually it teaches you a lesson. It's kind of like if you don't want to feel that guilt, well, like what you were saying, well, you have to go through that adversity and you got to make some changes.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like saying, so going back to my point, it's like, with fear, you have to have like faith that you have to have faith in your skills. You have to have faith in whatever happens, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not like, I have this faith that I'm going to win. No, you have faith that you're going to learn from this and you're going to become like just a better man overall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that was beautifully put, as far as like the fear thing. So yeah, I love that kind of, that talk of like philosophy. That's what I mean. It's those certain insights with, like you said, a high level fighter like Khalil Roundtree too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it just adds more insight to it because he's at the highest level. So are you. You're going to become, that with your pro fights. But can you, just keep going with it. I mean, can you talk more about, your other philosophies on that? Because this is a podcast of psychology and philosophies, honestly.
Beautiful. My favorite. Yeah. If I I'm sorry, it's like an inside joke. Cricket. Like if I did go to college, I would have studied psychology. Yeah, the whole mental aspect of fighting, man, it's such a fascinating rabbit hole to even dive down because everybody because everybody thinks of it differently. And also when it comes to MMA, everybody's coming from different backgrounds, right? And this is something I think about sometimes as well. Everybody's got their own different philosophies and ways of going about it. For instance, Muay Thai, it's very respectful. They don't gloat and boast in, the opponent's face and say, like, it's like frowned upon. Like, you just don't behave that way. And we understand that, okay, I knocked him out, but man, that could have been me. And oh man, thank goodness it wasn't. And, okay, I was prepared and he wasn't, or I don't like to say lucky, but it just happened to him and it didn't happen to me on this day or whatever. I was more prepared or I was better for whatever reason. His time came and mine didn't, or my time comes and his time didn't, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we're both doing what we love and we're doing it at the highest level to put on a show in front of people that also love it and paid money to be here. And it's like, yeah, let's just do it and let's just have fun doing it. They're very like, well, at least in my opinion, I don't want to put words in their mouth. I haven't met a Thai or spoken to a Thai, but based on my experience in doing it, there's some attachment to, okay, sure, you want to win, but it's not personal. I'm not like fighting you.
Yeah.
But you notice with like when I was wrestling in high school, it was like Sparta, like, I just want to tear him to freaking pieces. And, I'm looking at a bracket like, yeah, I'm going to kill all these dudes. And, oh, so-and-so, I remember so-and-so. Yeah, I'm going to kill him or blah, 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 and it's like you're coming to break someone's soul, and I know it's like, so there's a lot of wrestlers that think like that. There's a lot of, boxers, they love to talk shit, or at least the ones I've met anyway, like, American ones anyway. And, everybody's philosophy is very different, and it's rooted in their training and in their culture and, the way things are, you see it in the sparring, it's almost like Muay Thai, boxing, and wrestling and jiu-jitsu. It's like wrestling and boxing are the hard ones, and jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai are like the smooth ones,
Yeah. Why is that, man? Why is that? That's that's perfect. It's almost like there's this, that's why that's widely known, right? That's why jiu-jitsu, they call it what was that fucking cliche? It's the art.
Oh,
the subtle,
the gentle art.
the gentle art.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
like,
jujitsu means. Yeah.
yeah, and I understand kind of where it comes from because it's like you could flow roll, right? And
Yeah.
for the most part, that's how they make it for everyone. If everyone showed like the primitive aspect of jiu-jitsu, how you're just fucking choking people
Dude,
out,
yeah.
then I don't think people would less people would gravitate towards it. But
Yeah.
since they kind of have that, I wouldn't say marketing aspect of it, but then they kind of have that feel to it. It's like, yeah, it's the gentle art. Everyone could do it. Look, a smaller guy fucking up a bigger guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, it's almost, a marketing thing to be able to be like, yeah, come along and do it.
You know, I don't think that's necessarily the purpose of it per se. I think it's similar to Muay Thai in the sense that it's so dangerous, you just can't do it at 100% all the time.
Yep.
You just can't do it like that. You know, Muay Thai, there's a lot more. I mean, sure, you're going to do some hard sparring, but to put it in like a ratio, you know, like 75% of the time, it's going to be light sparring. It's going to be very technical because that's the part that's really important. You know, it's important to have. And when I say control, I don't mean control as in just controlling your power per se or the lethality of your strikes. And I'm not even necessarily being literal. Well, strikes can be lethal, but the effectiveness, you know, you can control the effectiveness of your strikes. But it's more when I'm talking about control, I'm talking about it's important to learn how to control someone else, how to control a fight. And you don't learn that by being hard all the time. And I feel like it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, it's a lot about, well, I mean, wrestling is really, the whole sport is control. But jiu-jitsu, it's not about, oh, like, can I hold you on your back against your will? You know, or, you know, can I take you down? Or, you know, can I turn you over? You know, all that sort of stuff. It's, I think the problem-solving aspect is a lot deeper. That's why I think when I say nerd, I'm talking about myself too.
Sure.
All right. I think that's why a lot of
Jiu-jitsu
nerds
nerd.
gravitate towards jiu-jitsu because it's like, oh, so I can just figure out how to get out of this and like, cool.
And be all right. Yeah.
And yeah, cool. Yeah, just figure out how to do it. And there's so many different ways to get out and into certain situations in order to dominate. And dominating doesn't always look like somebody could be underneath somebody. There was a UFC fight. I forget the name of the guy. He was known for his Ezekiel choke. And he pulled off an Ezekiel choke from the bottom of Mount.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Dude's in the bottom of Mount and he's choking him. And I remember sitting here thinking like watching the fight and thinking, oh man, this guy's losing, like, you know, blah, 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 whatever. And then dude taps him. I'm like, what the hell did he even tap to? And then you pay attention and look at it again. And you're like, oh wow, he got an Ezekiel choke from the bottom.
Yeah. And I'm sure it was like really, really tight.
It had to have been, man, because
for
they were fighting for money and this dude tapped.
And from the bottom, that's hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, continuing with that, you know what I noticed just as a casual, like, kind of student, right? Doing both practices, going from Muay Thai to Jiu-Jitsu and, you know, back and forth. The striking aspect of it, I kind of know the difference, right? Since we are talking about it, meaning people are scared. They have this notion and they're scared to get hit. And it's almost like rightfully so, right? Because not everyone's the same. Not everyone's as experienced as you are and been doing it for a while. I mean, we all start from somewhere. And I think the notion is that, just that. It takes skill to get, believe it or not, this is going to sound weird, but it takes skill to get hit in the face at first, right? Isn't that true? Because of, like, if you're going to flinch, you have to know how you feel.
You're definitely right. That's actually not wrong.
Yeah,
at first I was like, what do you mean by that? Like skills? They still get hit in the face?
Yeah,
But-
not everyone's going to be like, boop, their first few times at least.
Yeah.
Boop, I'm good. They get hit at like, even at 60 or 40%, it's just human nature for something to come at you, right? That's why they got feints.
I think it's more about learning, like, and just understanding what's going on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I just understand as a fighter, if I get hit and every time I get hit, I go, you know, then that's just an opportunity to keep getting hit, you know?
Yes.
But you have to know how to be in the fight. Wow. You know, actually, because another example I was thinking of that I'm teaching the amateurs in Muay Thai, I'll be watching them spar and I'll be cornering them and stuff. And I'm like, okay, you know, keep him at bay with your long pros, blah, blah, blah. And he'll look at me and go, huh? I'm like, don't look at me.
Right.
Like, pretend I'm not here. Just listen to me and do it.
That's
right?
so fucking
And
hilarious, dude.
it's it's literally, it's an art in itself. It's a skill all on its own, just learning how to be in the fight. And actually, I pride myself on it because I like the way that feels. It feels really cool to like I'm having flashbacks of like wall wrestling today. You know, I remember like grappling and like, you know, okay, somebody's got one hook, but I'm like on the verge of getting them off my back, and I hear, you know, yeah, belly down on your knees. Yeah, grab his head, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, boom. And I'm doing it. And he's like, yeah, that's the way. Boom. Hey, make sure you don't. Yeah, okay. And I'm not saying, yeah, well, maybe sometimes I might respond verbally, and it just feels, I like that. That just feels really cool because that relationship between like coach and fighter where, you know, their knowledge is like literally being tossed to you as like a little assist, like, you know, yeah, some of this, yeah, some of that. And it's like, oh yeah, boom, okay, cool. And you're just doing it. I don't need to talk to you, but you know I hear you and you know it's happening. It's like, man, it's sweet. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, bro. Dude, that's so funny that you fucking said that. Trauma today, literally today in class, right? This is for the newer guys too. We were hitting the bag. We were doing bag work. It was it was bag work, and then he was trying to explain something in the middle of the rounds. The guys that's been there, you know, that's been going, you know, they've learned to just kind of keep going and then listen in the background. He had to stop the class because when he was talking, some guys would turn around and be like, and just stop the work in the middle of the round. And then he had to turn off the clock and explain that to like the newer guys.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, like he was literally saying, I'm paraphrasing here, but then don't just stop and look at me while I'm explaining shit. Like just keep going, but you know, pay attention. I found that so funny that you said that because me and, you know, the other guys that's been going for a while, we're just hitting the bag and then consciously, that's what you're thinking of. You're hearing, but I think that's, again, through experience. It's almost like, yeah, if you can knee, it's like, yeah, add in a switch knee or something, or then in the middle of the round, you're consciously, it's almost like multitasking, right?
Yeah, in a way,
it's like you're consciously like, oh yeah, he said knee after the round. Okay, you pick up on it very quick. And I think, you know, and again, that's not to blame like the newer guys or to discourage them, but I think it's fucking hilarious. Like
it is funny. And another funny thing about it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you do build a bit of a bond with your coach in the sense that, wow, you know, it's almost like those little dragon movies where like, the dragon like is like communicating with its rider, like, you know, telepathically or whatever, where you can recognize their voice. It was even like this wrestling, you know, wrestling, almost any coach I've had for like a substantial amount of time, freaking you go to a tournament or a fight or a match or whatever, and they're talking, you can, no matter how loud it is, you can hear their voice very clear.
Yep.
You know, and there's times where me and coach will be talking about a fight. It's like, yeah, I remember you saying this, and then, yeah, I did that, and blah, blah, blah. And like, you just know exactly what they said. And because of that, freaking sometimes, I remember there was one time I was sparring. It was a regular Tuesday sparring. We're sparring, and I'm just doing my thing or whatever. And I just remember hearing coach saying something about a switch kick or using the lead leg, blah, blah, blah. And I just started doing it. I just heard it and I was doing it. And then we're fighting, blah, blah. And it would start working. So I was like, okay, cool. Good thing I'm listening, blah, blah, blah. And then like we turn at some point and I see coach at a different angle. He's talking to somebody else. He's like having a conversation just over there or something. And I was like, wow, I just heard his voice saying something and I just started doing it. Yeah. And I think that's really cool.
It's such it's a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
It's a subconscious thing that you just have to be around the environment to pick that up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, because the first time you hear that, your brain can't process enough, right? Because if you're a beginner, I thought about this because I was reading this book, Think Fast, Think Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And you have system 1 and system 2 in your brain. And what happens is that like system 1, oh my God, I'm going to butcher this, but system 1 is like your fast thinking brain, right?
Okay.
When we're talking, it's just kind of like, we don't have to think about, hey, how are you doing, CT? Good. You're right. Your response is so quick. System 2, if I was like, hey, CT, 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. What is it?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Right, exactly. So what I mean is that you have to kind of like write it down. You have to think about it.
Right.
Even 8 times 8, right? It's kind of like, well, it's been a
64.
while since I went to school. So,
sorry, yeah.
right. So that's like their slow thinking brain. Now, what you have to do is cognitively think, put system 1 into system 2. So what I mean is that when you're hitting a bag, you're kind of like, if you're just say doing a jab and you just first started like combat sports or boxing, you're thinking of like how to twist your fucking hips and do that.
Yeah.
There's all this energy going into like, wait, how do I do that? Keep my hands up and then do that. There's so much going on. Once you get used to it, now it takes less energy and less bandwidth in your brain. And now you could think about other stuff, like paying attention to the coach.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Really good point. Really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? And that's what's really important about coaching and teaching. That's a skill on its own, just teaching things to people, you know, because
Yes.
you gotta learn to give people grace and learn to meet people where they are. I can't speak for everybody, but I hope that people do this well, because it's really important in order to retain, you know, people. Because I think that's kind of disappointing. Like when someone goes to a gym, has a bad experience, and they're like, "Oh, I just don't want to do this ever again."
Yep.
Because this is such a beautiful thing to be doing. Fighting is such a beautiful thing.
It is. I mean,
but I think the reason why is because, I mean, it all boils down to the reason why I even started doing it. I ran into a situation where I was helpless and I couldn't help myself. And I found out that there is a way to learn how to dominate this situation. You can prevent this from ever happening. Or if it does happen, it's going to happen because, you know, someone who understands the same things, that you could be at the same level of understanding as someone else, and then they get the upper hand just because they did it sooner at the right time. Or heck, they even did something that, even if they did something that you didn't know or don't understand, they could explain it to you and you could learn it, you know. Yep. I think that's the most beautiful thing about martial arts. You know, it's so incredibly dangerous, but if you just shut the fuck up and listen and train, then it's just a matter of time, and you'll have it.
Yeah, that's a challenge within. You're right. I mean, that's with some people. That's a challenge within itself, right?
Yeah.
It's not even just the martial arts. It's just about like listening and training. I mean, listening to whoever's coaching.
Yeah.
And kind of just going along with it, not have your ego be like, "Oh, this sucks." You know, it's
exactly.
being patient.
Like
much.
Bruce Lee says it, but it's the empty cup, the teacup. You know, a cup is most useful when it's empty. You know, a lot of people come into class, or not a lot of people. I've only run into this to like one to three times maybe. You know, somebody comes in and I see them doing something wrong or whatever, and then I'm correcting their technique, and they look at me like, "Oh yeah, okay," you know,
Right.
and it's like, all right, so this guy thinks he knows what he's doing. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's it's discouraging to a coach too, right? It's almost like, damn, like
yes and no. It's okay. Yeah. It's discouraging to like keep going, because why am I going to keep hitting something that's not going to knock down?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So okay, yeah, you're definitely right about that. But the reason it doesn't really bug me, only because it's comparable to telling somebody how to cook something, and you know, you tell them, yeah, you know, if you want it to taste good, you know, hey, instead of just putting salt and pepper on it, you gotta put some salt, pepper, and some garlic powder, some onion powder, and some cayenne pepper, and some blah blah blah, some paprika, some smoked paprika, blah blah blah, and blah blah blah, all this stuff. And then they don't do it, and then they taste it. It's like, okay, cool, we'll taste mine. Okay, look at yours. Boom. Okay, need I say more? You know?
Yeah.
And it's like and that's another beautiful thing about fighting that I loved about wrestling when I started doing that, and then I found that same trend across all martial arts. The proof is in the pudding. You can't lie. There's no lying going on, you know?
100%.
We're both half naked in a cage trying to kill each other, and one person's conscious and one person isn't. It's like, where's the question? You know, like, are we still wondering as to like, you know, who's, I don't even like to use the word better, but you know, sometimes that is the case, you know?
Yes.
The better fighter doesn't always win, all this sort of stuff, but the winner, the victor, I'm better today. I'm the better man today. Ha, I got it. Okay. There's no question who to pay. You understand what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah.
So
you can't hide. There's
you
nowhere
can't
to
hide.
go. Yeah.
You can't say nothing now.
Yeah,
Like, what you
yeah.
got to say to me now?
Yeah. Actions show everything, right? Like you are what you put in, pretty much, to sum it up. But
To sum it up.
yeah, man, I think this was a really fucking great podcast, man. Like as far as like philosophy and psychology, this is what the podcast is about. I mean, like I like what you said, man. The fighting thing is what most people and quote unquote casuals or whatever. It's or people that don't train.
Yeah.
It is about like your intellect and intelligence and all that. And I mean, you see two testosterone-filled guys in the ring, right, with their shirts off, and shit, just like talking shit to each other, which is kind of like what sells nowadays. And people that don't train, like they don't see the inner workings of like the respect and the humility and
The
what comes
respect,
with
the
the
humility.
training. And it's just yeah, sometimes it's a shame, but that's where we are, and it's good to get insights, especially from someone that does it at a high level. So I want to thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah,
This is my first time doing a podcast, and
Let's go.
man, I feel really good about the first one. This is great.
Oh, this is a gem, guaranteed. I appreciate you, dude.